With Dillon Brooks under heat lately in regards to his trash talking of LeBron James and his ejection in Game 2 of the Grizzlies-Lakers series, it had me wondering, who are the most hated players in the history of the NBA?
18.2, and his last 5, he's averaging.
And a fan with a little shove right there.
Yes, I spoiled it. Dillon Brooks is on this list. Of course he is. He's currently by far the most hated player in the league, but the NBA has been around for decades, and I assure you there's been other players hated just as much, if not more, than the former Grizzlies forward. Keep in mind that players are on this list for various reasons, whether it's a cocky trash talker, a dirty cheap shotter, or just a player you can't help not stand for no real reason whatsoever. This is not necessarily an exhaustive list. I did not include Michael Jordan, LeBron James, or Kobe Bryant. Of course, people hate them. They're some of the most polarizing but greatest players of all time. We're going to focus on other players, so let me know in the comments if I did miss someone though, and maybe we'll do a part 2. First player on our list is infamous for about 3 occasions that took place in his career, and that is Latrell Sprewell. After having a promising start to his career, being named to the All-Rookie team in his rookie year, and being named as an All-Star and to the All-NBA and All-Defensive teams in his second year, things started going sideways for Sprewell. In 1995, his third season, he got into a fight with Jerome Kersey during practice, left the court, and returned with a 2x4 to resolve the fight. After being restrained by his teammates, he threatened to return with a gun. And if you think that isn't weird enough, 2 years later, in 1997, things escalated even more. During a December 1st practice, Warriors coach PJ Carlesimo told Sprewell to put a little mustard on a pass that he had made. Latrell's response? To grab him around the neck and begin choking him until he was pulled away by several other players and team officials. After being told to leave practice, Sprewell returned within 20 minutes and threw a punch at his coach before he was pulled away again. But one last moment later in Latrell Sprewell's career made America hate him in a completely different way. Sprewell played for the Timberwolves later in his career, and after the 2004-2005 season, he was extended a 3-year, $20 million extension offer from the Timberwolves. But instead of accepting it, the 34-year-old turned it down, stating that, "I have a family to feed." Every other offer he received from other teams, he declined. He felt it was beneath him, and that ended up being Sprewell's last year in the NBA. Most definitely the most hated player of the 1980s, and potentially reviled as the dirtiest player of all time, Bill Lambert, a 6'11 center for the Detroit Pistons, who is probably 75% responsible for the 80s Pistons teams being nicknamed the Bad Boys. Some nicknames he had included the Prince of Darkness and His Heinous, yet somehow he reveled in this role as a villain, never backing down from it. Here are just a few quick clips of Bill Lambert borderline trying to hurt opposing players on the court.
He comes in and, yes, he did. He just gave him a two-handed slap to the...
Makes the basket as they go down. It looked like a...
Now, why did he shove him? I mean, he must have said something to him.
And some of the most popular moments from his career when it comes to dirty plays came in the 1987 Eastern Conference Finals, but it was in Game 5 that he was able to provoke a relatively cool-headed Robert Parrish into punching him in the face, getting Parrish suspended for Game 6. But here's what Parrish had to say about Lambert after his playing days were over. The thing with Lambert that not only myself, but the reason that they did not like Lambert is because his style of play was to hurt you. We all elbowed, we held, and we grabbed and we tripped, anything we could get away with, but we don't try to take you out. Lambert tried to take you out, he wanted to hurt you. This is just who Bill Lambert was. He loved playing the villain. He was also a really good basketball player and a huge reason the Pistons won back-to-back championships in 1989 and 1990. Kermit Washington is a name that you probably have never heard of, a power forward that came into the league in 1973 as a member of the Los Angeles Lakers, but the incident that lands him on this list occurred 4 years later in 1977. The Lakers are playing the Rockets when a scuffle broke out after a defensive rebound. The stories are conflicting as to who started it, but Kermit Washington punched a defenseless Rocket center Kevin Kernert as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was trying to pull him out of the skirmish. Rockets player Rudy Tomjanovich came rushing to Kernert's aid, but before he could get there, Kermit Washington turned around and threw a haymaker that landed squarely on Tomjanovich's nose. It fractured his face, broke his jaw, and left him unconscious on the court in a pool of blood. The facial fracture was so severe, Tomjanovich was leaking blood and spinal fluid into his mouth. In shock and unexpecting of the punch, he later recalled that he thought the scoreboard had fallen on him. The doctor who worked on Tomjanovich said, "I have seen many people with far less serious injuries not make it and likened the surgery to scotch taping together a badly shattered eggshell." Washington was suspended for 60 days while Tomjanovich missed the rest of the season. The NBA then went on to enact far stricter rules about fights on the court, and that is unfortunately about the only legacy Kermit Washington has to his 9-year NBA career. Ron Artest was a productive player over the course of his 17 seasons in the NBA, but he was best known as a hothead for the majority of his career, which led to his name change in 2011 to Metta World Peace. The hatred that many have for him can be summed up in 2 instances. First, a random regular season game in 2004 that turned out to be the most embarrassing night in NBA history, the Malice at the Palace. What many don't remember is that Ben Wallace technically started all of this, shoving Artest after a hard foul in a game that was largely decided. An all-out brawl between both teams ensued that Artest largely kept out of, but while lying on the scorer's table disengaged from the brawl, a Pistons fan threw a drink at him that wasn't captured during the broadcast, and the rest is history. Artest jumped the fan in the stands, and it was pure chaos after that. After it was all over, the NBA dished out its harshest punishment ever, suspending Artest for 86 games. Our second incident took place during the 2012 playoffs when Artest landed a vicious elbow on the Thunder's James Harden. To this day, Artest claims he didn't know Harden was there and was just celebrating, but I don't know about that one, Metta. If you were to put together a list of just purely cheap shotters in NBA history, Bruce Bowen has to be near the top, even to the point where he admitted it is just who I am in an interview a few years ago. And while he seems like a really nice guy off the court, a lot of players in the NBA throughout the 2000s had a huge problem with him on the court. While he was an incredible perimeter defender, he was also very physical and known for being a cheap shotter. Here's a quick rapid fire of some of the most prolific cheap shots in Bowen's career. Bowen was notorious for allegedly purposefully landing under a shooter's feet as they came down from a jump shot, and here he does that to Stevie Francis, injuring him in the process. He does the same thing to Vince Carter multiple times throughout the years in these 2 plays as well, and it's the exact type of thing that Zaza Pachulia did to Kawhi in 2017 and why the NBA created the landing area rule. Our next player on this list is more infamously known for his antics in college, but it may surprise you that he's done quite a bit of dirty things in the NBA as well. Starting as a rookie in NBA Summer League, he had 2 cheap shots on the Celtics' Grant Williams within a 3-minute span. Both redeemed flagrant fouls, and he was ejected from the game. Then in 2020, Trey Young took to Twitter when it seemed that Grayson tried to trip him while him and Dillon Brooks were trapping Trey Young in the front court. But his worst 2 plays in the NBA came last season when he took out Alex Caruso, breaking his wrist on a fast break. Caruso went on to miss 2 full months, and Allen was very apologetic afterwards. And then this past December of 2022, Allen was pushed a little bit by Patrick Williams before overreacting, in my opinion, and kind of shoving DeMar DeRozan in the back with the forearm. DeRozan seemed pretty upset about it, and after the game said it's his track record. If it was Boban, I wouldn't have done anything. And finally, the most hated player currently in the NBA, the Memphis Grizzlies forward, Dillon Brooks. We could make a whole video on why he is currently the most hated player in the NBA, but the bottom line is he just seems to be an a-hole on the court and off the court. This is a brief history of everything Dillon Brooks has done to make him hated in the past 3 months. Let's start with February 2nd of 2023. The Grizzlies are playing at the Cavaliers. Dillon Brooks goes in for a drive, misses the layup, falls to the ground, and hits Donovan Mitchell below the belt. 6 weeks later against the Miami Heat, Dillon Brooks tries to save a ball going out of bounds near midcourt and shoves the cameraman over, which led to the NBA fining him $35,000. And that leads us to his most recent beef with LeBron James. Before the play-in tournament game versus the Timberwolves, Brooks told reporters that he wouldn't mind playing LeBron in a 7-game series. When asked about his confrontation on the court with LeBron, Dillon Brooks replied, "I don't care, he's old. I poke bears. I don't respect someone until he gives me 40. And that right there sums up the legacy of Dillon Brooks. He's a really good perimeter defender, but he thinks he's a really good offensive player, and he's just not. He's actually gotten worse over the years. Shortly after the Grizzlies season ended, they put out a statement, which is one of the weirdest PR stunts we've seen in the NBA, saying they were not going to bring Dillon Brooks back under any circumstances. So I don't know what the future holds for Dillon Brooks in the NBA. Hopefully he's learned his lesson that he can't just continue doing things like this. But either way, it's very clear he's the most hated player in the NBA currently, and a great great way to finish this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed videos like this, check out my last video I did on NBA playoff records that you've never heard of. Thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you on the hardwood.